Who is that guy? YouTube channel. Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, subscribe for more. Biography, history, controversy, and more. Hi, my name is Charles, and I'll be the narrator of this channel. Sit back, relax, and don't take life seriously. Now, let's go back in time. Gregori Rasputin was born to a peasant family in the Siberian village of Pokrovskoye. He had a revelation and made a religious conversion after taking a pilgrimage to a monastery in the year 1897. He has been described as a monk, even though he is not officially connected to the Russian Orthodox Church. He traveled to St. Petersburg in 1903, where he captivated some church and social leaders because of his charismatic personality. He became a society figure and met Emperor Nicholas and Empress Alexandra in November 1905. In late 1906, Rasputin began making a name for himself as a faith healer for the imperial couple's only son, Alexei, who suffered from hemophilia. Some Russians believe he was a mystic, visionary, and prophet, and by others as a religious charlatan. Rasputin has been popular in Siberia in the early 1900s. Between the year 1904 and 1905, he went to the city of Kazan, where he was named as a holy man who helped people resolve their spiritual crises and anxieties. Despite rumors that Rasputin was having an affair with female followers, he made a favorable impression on the Father Superior of the Seven Lakes Monastery outside Kazan, as well as local church officials. A bishop gave him a letter of recommendation to Bishop Sergei. Upon meeting Sergei at the Nevsky Monastery, Rasputin was introduced to church leaders. It was through these meetings that Rasputin attracted some of his early and influential followers, many of whom would later turn against him. Much of Rasputin's influence with the royal family started to build up when Alexandra and others noticed that he had on several occasions eased the pain and stopped the bleeding of Alexei, who suffered from hemophilia. According to historian Mark Farrow, the Tsarina had a passionate attachment to Rasputin, believing he could heal her son's illness. Alexei and his siblings were also taught to view Rasputin as our friend and to share confidences with him. The imperial family's belief in Rasputin's healing powers brought him considerable status and power at court. The Tsar appointed Rasputin his lamplighter, charged with keeping the lamps lit before religious icons in the palace, and this gained him regular access to the palace and royal family. By December 1906, Rasputin had become close enough to ask a special favor of the Tsar, that he be permitted to change his surname to Rasputin Novi. Nicholas granted the request, and the name change was speedily processed, suggesting that he already had the Tsar's favor at that early date. Rasputin used his position to full effect, accepting bribes and sexual favors from admirers and working diligently to expand his influence. Rasputin soon became a controversial figure. He was accused by his enemies of religious heresy and rape, was suspected of exerting undue political influence over the Tsar, and was even rumored to be having an affair with the Tsarina. Opposition to Rasputin's influence grew within the church. In 1907, the local clergy in Pokrovskoye denounced Rasputin as a heretic, and the Bishop of Tobolsk launched an inquest into his activities, accusing him of spreading false doctrines. In St. Petersburg, Rasputin faced opposition from even more prominent critics, including Prime Minister Peter Stolypin and the Okhrana, the Tsar's secret police. Stolypin confronted the Tsar about him but did not succeed. But in 1909, Berlitskaya, who had been one of Rasputin's early supporters in St. Petersburg, accused him of rape. Rumors multiplied that Rasputin had assaulted female followers and behaved inappropriately on visits to the imperial family, particularly with the Tsar's teenage daughters Olga and Tatiana. Rumors were reported widely in the press after March 1910. In World War I, the dissolution of feudalism and a meddling government bureaucracy all contributed to Russia's rapid economic decline. Many laid the blame on Alexandra and her evil spirit, Rasputin. In July of 1914, a 33-year-old peasant woman named Cyanide attempted to assassinate Rasputin by stabbing him in the stomach outside his home in Pokrovskoye. Rasputin was seriously wounded, and for a time it was not clear if he would survive. After the successful surgery, and spending much time in a hospital in Tyumen, he slowly recovered. Tsarina claimed to have acted alone, although she is known as a follower of Iliador, a former priest who had supported Rasputin. She believes that Rasputin to be a false prophet and even an antichrist. Both the police and Rasputin, however, believe that Iliador had instigated the attempt on Rasputin's life. Iliador fled the country before he could be questioned, and Tsarina was found to be not responsible for her actions by reason of insanity. A group of nobles led by Prince Felix Yusupov, Grand Duke Dmitry Pavlovich, and right-wing politician Vladimir Purishkevich are planning to kill him in December 1916 because they believe Rasputin's influence over the Tsarina threatened the stability of the empire. Rasputin was murdered during the early morning of December 30, 1916 at the home of Felix Yusupov. He died of having 3 gunshot wounds, one of which was a close-range shot to his forehead. Little is certain about his death beyond this, and the circumstances of his death have been the subject of considerable speculation. There are people who somehow knew this was coming, and knew who planned on killing him but were afraid to speak up. According to Yusupov, he invited Rasputin to his home shortly after midnight and lead him into the basement. Yusupov offered Rasputin tea and cakes which contained cyanide. Rasputin initially refused the cakes but then began to eat them, and, to Yusupov's surprise, Rasputin appeared unaffected by the poison. Rasputin then asked for some wine, which also contains poison, and he drank 3 glasses, but still showed no sign of distress. At around 2:30 a.m., Yusupov excused himself to go upstairs, where his fellow conspirators were waiting. He took a revolver from Dmitry Pavlovich, then returned to the basement and told Rasputin that he'd better look at the crucifix and say a prayer, referring to a crucifix in the room, then shot him once in the chest. The conspirators then drove to Rasputin's apartment with Sakukin, wearing Rasputin's coat and hat in an attempt to make it look as though Rasputin had returned home that night. Upon returning to the Morka Palace, Yusupov went back to the basement to ensure that Rasputin was dead. Suddenly, Rasputin leaped up and attacked Yusupov, who freed himself with some effort and fled upstairs. Rasputin followed Yusupov into the palace's courtyard, where he was shot by Purishkevich. He collapsed into a snowbank. The conspirators then wrapped his body in cloth, drove it to the Pokrovskoye Bridge, and dropped it into the Malayanevka River. News of Rasputin's murder spread quickly, even before his body was found. Rasputin's body was found under the river, approximately 200 meters downstream from the bridge. Dmitry Kosoronov, the city's senior autopsy surgeon, conducted an autopsy. Kosoronov's report was lost, but he later stated that Rasputin's body had shown signs of severe trauma, including 3 gunshot wounds. During the autopsy, no poison was present inside the body of Rasputin. Rasputin was buried the following day at a small church at Tsarskoye Selo. The funeral was attended only by the imperial family and a few of their intimates. Rasputin's wife, mistress, and children were not invited. The imperial family never had the chance to bring justice to Rasputin because the Tsar abdicated from his position, and there were a lot of things going on, and a new Soviet era begun. Rasputin's daughter, Maria Rasputin, emigrated to France after the October Revolution, and then to the U.S. There, she worked as a dancer, and then a tiger trainer in a circus. She left memoirs about her father, wherein she painted an almost angelic picture of him, insisting that most of the negative stories circulating were not true, and his enemies were twisting the facts because they knew that Rasputin has been loyal to the imperial family, and they were afraid that one day Rasputin may rise to power. To some, Rasputin was just a victim of jealousy, politics, and misunderstanding, although there's more story to tell about him. But history was never fair to him, and he will always be painted as an evil man. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more upcoming videos. Goodbye.